100 properties in 1 year. That almost sounds unfathomable to most people, honestly. Can I buy one property per year? Can I close 100 properties in a year? I wouldn't have that goal if I didn't have the ability to buy in bulk. And that became my big goal. I didn't know how to do that. Over the last month and a half, we put 84 properties under contract. Stop making your agents go see properties before you buy them. The vast majority of leads that come my way, I will not even make an offer on. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing, where we talk about the successes, the lessons, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host,
Anna by Lake Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor.
And today we have another special, very special guest. We have Mr. Omni Casey, the founder of the Cashflow Breakfast Club, a good friend of ours, a mentor. If you haven't heard his story, loop back to episode 25. We did a deep dive of, everything where he came from, what got him into real estate. But we're very excited to have him come back on. So welcome to the show. What's up, guys? Super excited to be here. So we circled this a couple of weeks ago, and Ann and I were kind of talking off camera, and we've been following you socially, and following your journey, especially this past year in 2025, of a pretty cool goal that you have going on with your business. We wanted to kind of talk about that, and I know you had a goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, of buying 100 properties in 1 year. Is that accurate? And what made you even want to do something like that? Yeah. I mean, so I've got a lot of goals, right? We've been on Vivid Vision masterminds together. We've been on other types of masterminds, and we kind of talk through big things at those levels. And I'm someone that just needs to be driven by the future. I get bored with the past, I get bored with the present to some extent, which is my fault, right? So I got to focus on the present. But really what makes me dig into the present is something really exciting in the future. And those are big goals. And, from my previous story is like, all right, can I buy one property per year? And that became my big goal. I didn't know how to do that. And I started to do that. And it was 2, 3, 4 properties per year. And then a handful of years ago, I kind of shifted to, can I buy one property every 2 weeks? And that's when my 52 properties in 52 weeks goal kind of came into effect. And now, last year, my goal was, for the last 2 years, my goal is, can I close 100 properties in a year? I keep saying last year, 2 years ago, or that 2024, closed on 93 properties. We almost got there. And then last year, we were kind of having a slow, we're in the 30s-ish or so of properties. We're more than halfway through the year. And it just wasn't clicking, and wasn't, we're going through the normal things, but I've got a lot of other things that I was focused on, a lot of Cashflow Breakfast Club. I was getting into assisted living facilities and a few other things that were kind of dividing my attention from like the numbers goal. And it's funny, I was, kind of doing this small coaching program. I don't do a ton of coaching anymore, but a friend of mine asked me to kind of do this coaching program. And so we put this small group together for 5 months, and I just taught them what I used to teach everyone in coaching. And it was, part of it was finding deals. Part of it was, understanding your buy box and your market and things like that. I'm going through my off-market property segment, right? You guys teach that in the Cashflow Breakfast Club once a year, right? We go through exactly what you do. I'm like, I'm doing almost none of this anymore, right? Like I'm like a little bit, right? But none of it. I'm like, okay, here's why it's slow, right? And so I had this come to Jesus moment with my team, got them on we have a L10 meeting, every single week. You just kind of break things down, going through the KPIs. I'm like, there's some things we're managing our business. We're not really actively growing the business. And a lot of that's on me. I want you guys to hold me accountable to the things that I need to do. There's 4 core things that you can do to find those off-market deals. And, because I'm coaching these other people to do that, I'm like, I'm going to go along and do it while they're doing it as well. And that just turned into a flood of leads that were out there that I just, didn't know about. Right. So a lot of it comes with networking, intentional professional outreach, and a few things like that. But got a few big portfolios on the contract, a few other properties in a few new markets that we're expanding to. And then last month, I guess over the last month and a half, we put 84 properties under contract.
which helped us, skyrocket our goal for last year. And then obviously gives us a head start of where we need to go for this year. So super excited about that. But without that big goal and without me feeling bad about not achieving that goal, I would have had a subpar year for our standard for sure.
So how many properties did you end up closing? Or like, where'd you end up in 2025?
Yeah, we probably closed on, I'd have to look, it's probably close to 80 something or so, because so many of them got pushed into January that we closed in January and are closing some of those probably over the next couple of weeks in February. So it came short a little bit, but we had our deal flow set up. And so we're going to set a similar goal, maybe a slightly bigger goal, and hopefully just start taking business seriously earlier in the year versus later in the year.
I love, having those big audacious goals that make you kind of push, 100 properties in 1 year, that almost sounds unfathomable to most people, honestly. So why even, why was that one of your goals? Is that something that you just wanted to do, like cross it off the checklist or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I go back and forth on whether or not we need to buy a whole ton of more real estate. So the one commitment I made early in my life before I bought my first property was to buy real estate every year. And so I'm lucky that I just kind of defined it as that. So it really means one property per year, right? So I'll keep that for the rest of my life. Whether or not I need to get 10 properties per year or 200 properties per year goes up and down with what else is important in my life. So that 100 property goal was probably third or fourth of my list of importance. And it took a backseat because of that. So health was a huge goal. Just for guys, I got to be an adult, take my health seriously for the first time in my life, and kind of go through, hired a coach, join a mastermind, and opted into the accountability and seeing some results on that, and just beginning my journey, there. Family and relationship, feel like I'm a good dad, good husband. I want to be a great dad, great husband, right? So what are the intentional things that I can do to, figure out how to improve that, our environment where we are, on a regular basis. I shared this in my vivid vision, with you guys previously. Just like, I really like traveling. I really like having multiple homes in multiple areas. And we have many homes, but we never really use them as multiple homes. And really, this is the first year where we're exploring that. So we from Hawaii, we're spending a lot of time in Northern Virginia for the last 15 years or so. And now we're trying out Southwest Florida, which we used to visit, but now it's like a semi-permanent relocation, maybe for 6 months, maybe for 2 years. We don't know. But just kind of giving my family the freedom to kind of make that choice and find an environment that they're happy with as well. So that's been my focus. And then growing the real estate and business. So several other businesses tied to real estate, and landed on assisted living facilities. So those have been my focus. And so to say that 100 properties is my third or fourth priority sounds, weird just saying that, but that's really what it was. And so I got to figure out, is that still a key priority, or am I okay just kind of pushing through? But without some sort of goal, that business just kind of withers, doesn't die, but the growth dies completely.
So I'm not just knowing you over the last couple of years. I know you're super driven, and, you were everywhere, especially the last, before this past year, you were going to all these meetups of, the Cashflow Breakfast Club, the masterminds that you, host and co-host. What made you shift kind of your mindset of like, okay, like I'm doing this, I'm grinding. It might be taking time away from my family and things that are very important to you. Was there like something that clicked for you that made you kind of decide you wanted to change it a little bit?
Yeah, there's probably a few things. But I don't think balance exists, right? Like balance is a lie, and I don't strive for like balance, but there's balancing. And so just understanding seasons in your life, and like you go extreme one way, something takes a deficit, right? So if I'm going all in on business, a lot of other things take a deficit. If I'm going all in on health, then I got to put a few things on the back burner, right? So there's this balancing. I just realized it's a time to reshift my focus and balancing. It's not a permanent shift, but it's like, okay, can I get these up and running again? Actually, the mastermind that we were on in Greece together, like just kind of thinking through, going through those exercises that you guys are going through, kind of thinking through what's important for the next few years of my life. hearing all your stories and the things that you guys are doing, just, those are really crucial for me to kind of hit a reset and, figure out, am I focusing on the right thing? There's nothing wrong with focusing on real estate. I love real estate. I'll always do that. But I need to say, okay, my health needs to stop taking a backseat. My relationships need to stop taking a backseat. My other kind of branches off, the Cashflow Breakfast Club growth and other businesses kind of took a backseat with my real estate obsession. And so I'm trying to find the right, I don't think it needs to be in fourth place, but somewhere in second or third place of priority is probably where the next 5 years of my life, where that will be.
Yeah. It's interesting how when your mind shifts, like the things just open up. Cause I mean, sadly, I didn't get to go to Greece, but I went to the Dominican Republic. I remember you reading your Vivid Vision, and it talked about different homes and shifting perspective. And I know it didn't happen right away, but it sounds like when you shifted your mindset after Greece, like it just kind of happened. Like we were all shocked. We're like, wait, you're doing what?
Yeah, no, it's key. That's how the Vivid Vision happens, right? So it's a 3-year out vision and goal. And sometimes some of it happens right away. Sometimes it's years down the road, but just defining what you want to happen is crucial. And sometimes that changes over time, right? But like, here's what I think I want my future to look like. Let's define it out. Let's make it crystal clear, make it vivid. Think about it, read it, share it enough. And then now the world conspires, to make it happen for you. And so it helped put that into perspective. And then that other reset that I just did, in Greece kind of made me reevaluate what that was and say, okay, in reality, what's the bite-sized piece of this? I don't need to do the entire thing, but what's the bite-sized piece of this to get us closer to the vision that I think is right for me and my family?
Yeah. Vivid Vision is a powerful book. And, we do that with the Cashflow Breakfast Club. That's our 12th session, and it kind of helps reset and kind of put everything in perspective of what's really important to you. So I did want to kind of circle back about, the 100 properties in 1 year. So people hear that, they're like, how is that even possible? Are you going to meet 100 different sellers and you're reaching out to thousands and thousands and thousands of people? But I know you have kind of a different strategy. You mind talking about like how you found these properties, how you marketed to these, and then, your strategy in reaching that 100 property goal?
Yeah, I wouldn't have that goal if I didn't have the ability to buy in bulk. So I buy portfolios is my main strategy. I have several different buy boxes, but my core buy box are B class, C class neighborhoods, portfolios, a landlord that owns 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 duplexes to fourplexes that wants to sell them all at the same time. And that allows me to have one transaction with one seller with a lot of moving parts in between, but I don't have to start the relationship with all these people. So it starts with reaching out to a lot of people, whether it's professional networking. A lot of my deals come from people that I know within the Cashflow Breakfast Club, community leaders, community members, just starting those conversations of people saying, okay, I heard that you buy this, and I heard someone that's interested in selling and they're off market. So let's have a conversation. So really intentional networking, intentional outreach. There are some markets that we try to break into, and we do direct to seller, where there's calls, postcards, text messages and things like that. We didn't actually have to do a ton of that this time around, just because our networking, our aggressive reaching out to investor-friendly agents, wholesalers, and other investors really paid dividends in terms of the leads that came our way. And we got several out of the 84 in the contract. There's 2 main portfolios that we have under contract. We have a handful of small one-off properties that we're buying in our other buy boxes, but that made up the bulk of that purchase.
Okay. Do you want to go into one of those portfolios? I don't know which one it was when we spoke in December that you were closing on one. I think it was in one of the Carolinas. I don't know if they're both in the Carolinas. Do you want to, or could you go specifically into one of those? What that deal looked like?
So one that we're still working through right now is North Carolina. Most of them are Fayetteville, Greensboro, like three areas within North Carolina. This landlord, tired of being a landlord, feeling like, they're very hands-on. They've been doing it for a while, husband and wife. Health is failing a little bit. And they're like, we just can't do this. You can't really rely on them. And to do everything themselves, and they were outsourcing a little bit of it, but they're really hands-on, and they're realizing they just can't do this anymore, don't want to do it. And so they stopped growing several years ago. They stopped aggressively buying. That's one key of finding a tired landlord. And then they realized, all right, we got to figure out how to start selling this. And when they started reaching out to the agents in the area, the agents gave them the right advice. Like, to sell this, you need to clean up the unit. You need to put it on the market. You got to probably should wait till the tenant moves out, because you're going to sell it to a owner occupant who's going to pay the most for the money. All true. But for them to go through, I think it was close to 70 properties was the initial portfolio that we're working with on them. They actually have 3 portfolios that we want to buy. The first one that we got under contract is 70. It would have taken them 3, 4, 5 years to get through all of those in terms of going through that method. And they're like, they don't even know if we're going to be here in 5 years. Like, literally, that's what I'm saying. Like, we can't do this. Like, and they had no one to like push it off to, pass it on to. They just want to resolve it. And so that's where I come in. Like, all right, there's not many buyers that will buy 70 properties. Not all the properties were great. Most of them were. There were some duds in there. And most investors come in and say, well, I want to buy just your good properties and you keep the bad properties. And if you're a seller, you're like, why do I want to be left with the worst headache properties?
Mm-hmm.
So my agreement is, for the right terms, I'll buy everything. The good, the bad, the ugly. As a whole, the portfolio needs to make sense. I'll take on the ones that are losers, in terms of cash flow. Often the single family homes in the portfolios aren't actually cash flowing that well. The duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes are, but I'll take it all on. I just want to keep the cash flow. So often those single family homes, if we can't convert them to short-term rental, these are not short-term rental markets, or co-living, they're not large enough for that, then we typically sell them so that we don't have a negative cash flow property, but we take that on ourselves to sell them, right? Whether we wholesale it during the process, or whether we do a light rehab, we sell it, to break even at maybe at a loss. Sometimes we're making a little bit of profit, sometimes not, but really just getting rid of that percentage. So out of that entire portfolio, there's probably 9 or 10 that are single family homes that kind of fall into my red bucket. I categorize everything. It's green, which is cash flow. We want to keep this. Blue is, if we can stabilize this, it'll cash flow, or we can do something different with this. And red is, we would not be buying this unless it was part of the portfolio. And so we have these red buckets that the sellers are happy because we're taking everything. But we know that after closing, we got to stabilize those or fix them up or sell them or something along those lines. Now, the good thing for us is we're able to recapture a lot of the capital that we put in right up front, so it's like a burr. I call it the portfolio burr, except we are selling off a few of the pieces, the ones that don't cash flow well, but actually have high equity. And so what happens is we get our equity back for that portion, and our overall cash flow for the entire portfolio goes up a higher percentage, because we're now taking down that drag of the property there. So we just optimize portfolios once we purchase it. This might take 6 months. This might take 2 years, depending on the size of the portfolio and the leases that are involved.
Okay. All right. And then I know we talked about this before. You don't negotiate every single property individually for a specific price. There's like an overall price that you pay, but then there's like some logic to that. Like then when you do appraisals and stuff, I don't know if we're getting too deep, but is that?
Yeah, it's a lot to have to go in and analyze every single property. Now, the seller is very thorough. She actually had appraisals done on all her properties within the last year, right? So
Wow.
it's crazy, right? So she came with appraisals, knew what this is. She wanted this much, and so it gave us a starting point. But for us to go and individually say, I don't really believe that number on that appraisal, or you're over or under on this one, that's a lot. So we just kind of look at the entire amount. This one was like $19 million of valuation for this appraisal, somewhere close to $20 million for this portfolio. And we agreed upon our number for the entire portfolio. So we have a master agreement in place saying we're going to buy all of these. Now it's going to be over a period of time. Some are going to close sooner. Some are going to close later, because we're doing individual contracts to follow up. But we put an addendum in there that states that they will agree to do a separate contract for each individual property if the lender requires it. And then we're going to assign a dollar value to each property. That dollar value might be more or less in appraisal value. It might be more or less than what you think it's worth, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller. But as long as every contract adds up to the price that we agree on. And at the end, they get exactly what they're looking for. But for example, we use DSCR loans for a lot of our property. So they have, that's based on the cash flow. And if I'm buying a fourplex for $500,000 and the cash flow is, the rents are $7,000 a month. All right, that's good cash flow. I could push that valuation up a little bit more, see if appraisals agree with my new valuation of a higher amount that I want to pay for that property, because there's cash flow that would support it. On the back end, the single family homes, let's say it's worth $300,000, but it's only renting for $2,000 a month. So even though the appraiser says $300,000, the DSCR lender is not going to give us a loan for $300,000, which means I got to reduce that price to $200,000. Sellers are saying, no, it's worth way more than $200,000. Yeah, it is. But the DSCR lender will not give us a loan for that, right? They'll give us a loan based on breaking even or positive income based on rents. And so we have to look at it as a whole, knowing that we're going to push some high, bring some low to meet that DSCR amount. And if we negotiate enough equity in the front end, we buy in bulk because we get a discount, often somewhere between 15 to 25% discount of market value if they sold them individually. And they know that. We tell them, we're only way we're doing this is if we're getting a discount. We're buying it based off margin. It saves you 3 to 5 years of doing this individually, and they run the math. They say, okay, it makes sense for us. And so if we're able to do this, then once we do the acquisitions and refinances on any of the rehabs, then hopefully we're able to get a lot of our capital back, sometimes all of our capital back in that 6 month to 2 year window.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
It's a lot of moving parts. I think I posted something, and maybe you guys saw it, but like over Christmas break, I'm just like paying for appraisal after appraisal after appraisal.
And the credit card company called you?
Like $80,000 worth of appraisals in like 3 days. I'm like, that was a record for me as well. But that's the risk, right? So you pay for these, and like, let's say all the appraisals don't come in. All right, well, we just spent $80,000 on property we can't buy. So there's definitely risk in this. But we knew enough about the market and the properties where we're confident that most of them would come in. And we've seen that so far. Most of them came in at or above what we expected. There's a few that didn't. But the aggregate, if you add them all up, is still in a net positive for us.
Would you have done that even if she didn't have the appraisals? Did you feel more confident about it because she had appraisals done beforehand?
It helped, not confident, because we can't use those appraisals, right? And as we know, every appraiser is going to come up with whatever they dream they had that day to come up with a valuation. I love you guys appraisers. You guys are awesome.
We just had an appraiser on last episode. We love appraisers.
But it did give us it made our research quicker. So we can go through the appraisals logic, and we could, instead of trying to come up with a number from scratch, we can just validate or invalidate their logic, which is much easier for me. So if someone brings me a deal and says, what do you think about this? I'm like, what do you want me to look at? Like, you want me to analyze the entire economy, numbers, everything from scratch? What are you trying to do with this? Versus someone says, here's a deal. Here's how I'm looking at. Here's what I think is valued. Here's what I want to do. It's very easy for me to look at their logic and agree with it or comment or alter that. Right. And so that's what having an appraisal ahead of time, it speeds up that process of identifying the logic.
So I love this topic of like buying in bulk. It's unique. It's a different kind of strategy. I mean, it can help you to get to your financial freedom cash flow goal sooner, right? You're buying properties. Obviously, you have to buy them right. But I wanted to talk about like how that deal got to you, right? I know you have a huge network. You're talking to agents. You're talking to people in the Cashflow Breakfast Club or people that are always bringing you deals. But how did that initial conversation go with the sellers? I know you mentioned, buying on terms. You might talking a little bit about that, how you got the deal and how that initial conversation started.
Yeah, absolutely. So this came initially through a wholesaler, through a relationship of someone that I'm friends with, another investor in another state. It's not what they do. Knew that this is what I do. Someone that I've been on a mastermind with, right? And so they brought it to me. Said, hey, it looks like this is what you're doing. Are you interested in? So kind of made that connection there. They weren't really tied in on the final terms. They said, how do you structure these? How do you make these work? and just kind of walk through that process. And so worked with that wholesaler, worked with the investor to kind of deal with the seller. They've been communicating back and forth for probably 3-4 months up into that point, and just haven't been able to get it to the closing table. Because no one, seller, buyer, wholesaler, none of them have done this before. And so they brought me in, and I kind of took over. And because I've done it so often, I've kind of showed, here's what I've done. Here's like exactly the hurdles we're going to come up with if we don't structure it this way. And so structuring it this way gives you some clarity. They were trying to price out every single one individually up until this point, right? And they're trying to like close all at the same time. And so all things that make sense, unless you've actually tried to do that before, it doesn't make sense. There's not a single lender that will be able to close all those at once, right? So we kind of do them in phases, and we understand, what that phase is. And we have these dynamic pricing for the contracts that we got to adjust up or down based on the valuations of the previous 10, 20 contracts that came in, so that we're always lining up with our target goal for what the sellers are working on. Then it's having the right lenders, the right DSCR lenders in place. Sometimes there's creative financing involved, right? And so there's creative, like this one, there's a little bit of creative financing where we did a seller note for a small portion of the down payment. So it's reducing our down payment. So it's not the full 20% down. All right, we got to find the lenders that know how to work with that are okay with it. And how do we structure that on the back end? So there's a lot of moving parts that they were trying to figure out. And then basically they just brought it to me, and I was able to, within 2 or 3 days of conversations and answering the questions and concerns that the sellers had, get them to agree to the right contract that would give us a chance of getting these closed.
I'm just curious, what type of concerns and questions did they have in terms of, I'm sure they vetted you, and you having a track record of already doing this and things like that helps, but what did they have that like concerns that they had?
Yeah, it really was. They were thinking of it from, they've sold 1 or 2 properties before, and like dealing with a buyer buying 1 or 2 properties before, and like, oh, the home inspection period was a nightmare, and we haggled back and forth for 5 days on this home inspection item. Like, that's not happening on this, right? We're going to be inspecting, we're going to be making sure the condition, but I'm buying with the right margins, unless we find out that there's something majorly wrong and you lied to us. If you lied to us about something, then we'll come back on something, but I'm not going to be dinging you for, old appliances and HVACs and roofs that look a little bit more worn than you told us it was. If there's a broken foundation that you're hiding, or if there's mold in a property that you're hiding, right? Those are big items that we would reevaluate on. But for the most part, we will streamline that process. So they were thinking through, they needed to have 70 plus nightmare individual transactions. And I said, that's just not how this works. I don't have the time for that. I don't have the patience for that. Neither should you guys have the patience to deal with that. We're going to get this done in, roughly 60 days, 60 to 75 days is typically what it might take to close a portfolio this size.
That even sounds crazy to me that you can do that in 60 days. I was about to ask, how long is your due diligence period over this? I feel like 60 days.
It's definitely a sprint. It's not a lot of days off during this window. And it's tied to appraisals, right? So the core is making sure the appraisals come in, and then making sure we have people walking properties and validating leases. Most of these properties are occupied, and so we got to validate leases. We got to get a stop certificate. So there's a lot of things to make sure. And we were able to pull in, we have really good agents out there. We have good property management team that's involved as well to kind of help us through this process to make sure that while we're validating, we're lining up our systems for next steps.
That's a great point, because you mentioned that you're inheriting some tenants, right? So most of these are occupied. Are the sellers providing like rent roll, or, the type of tenants that you're actually getting?
Yep. So before the offer, they had T12s, were trailing 12s, they had rent rolls, they had P&Ls. They were pretty detailed in providing that information. That was actually pre-existing for me even getting involved, like for months that the people that I got this deal from were looking at. So they had that information. It wasn't fully updated because it maybe a few months outdated. So we got them to update it. But once we get under contract, then it comes down to, all right, the actual leases. We need to see these leases. We need to validate. We need to go to the tenants, make sure they're still there. Make sure that, all right, we have these leases. It says they're paying $2,000 a month. That's good. have they actually been paying $2,000 a month, right?
Right.
So there's the physical vacancy of or occupancy of the property, but there's the economic vacancy or occupancy of the property. Meaning, is someone there? Great. Is someone paying? Great. If they're there not paying, that's an issue. And so just making sure that everyone's caught up, or if someone's not caught up, then we know how to adjust it at the end in terms of what our expectations are. There's a price for everything. So if someone's not paying, they're behind 3 months. Like, what is the cost of getting them caught up, or worst case scenario, the legal cost to get them out of there and put a new tenant in place. But rarely do we go in and try to just get tenants out. We're always working with the existing tenants. We always want them to kind of, have a smooth transition. But, in any portfolio you buy, there are really great tenants, and there's some tenants that are just trying to scam the system. Like, just they moved in and they never paid. And the current landlords are just stressed out about what to do about it. So we work with it. We deal with that as well.
So, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
just had one follow-up. So it sounded like, this particular seller was pretty organized. They had, everything ready for whoever was buying it. But I'm just curious, in your experience, have you ever dealt with somebody that wasn't as organized, and, you're buying things kind of, with the gray area based off of what they say? How does that work?
Yeah, I would say most that I buy for are less organized than this. Because they're smaller, they're, 10, 20 properties or so. It's right at the size where they can manage it themselves. Not great, but manage it themselves. Not big enough where they felt like they had to outsource, or maybe that's why they're selling, because they feel it's a little overwhelming, but they don't know how to outsource it. They don't want to outsource it to a property manager or team in place. And so their books are fuzzy. Their documentation is, less than accurate. And so that's where, like the FBI, due diligence period basically is, all right, we got to go verify these things. And sometimes it's talking to tenants. Sometimes it's getting someone in there to go, validate what you're telling us. And if it's not true, then that's a deal killer, or it's a renegotiation at a bit.
Okay. Nico stole my question. That was going to be my question. Because they actually sounded like they treated their business like a business for the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. But like I said, this is one of 3 major portfolios they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a lot of properties. So my goal is to do this well, help them through this process, realize that it was a lot less pain than they thought it would be to go through this. And then they would sell me everything they have.
Okay. Do you have something in the contract that like you mentioned earlier, like if you realize a property, something was hidden, or one of the properties or several of the properties aren't what you thought, but maybe there are good ones in there. Is there something in the contract that lets you renegotiate and take some of those out? Like, how do you work that?
Yeah, it does allow us to renegotiate to an extent. So as long as the entire portfolio still meets the value equity quotient, I'm typically okay. If I literally I see a property and there's a $12,000 issue on the property, I might not even say anything to them at all, because we may have gotten appraisals $12,000, $15,000, $20,000 over on other properties. And so as long as I try to be fair. So as long as the net result is what I'm expecting or more, I'm okay. We had an appraisal that came in extremely low, and I sent it to them. I said, don't even worry about it. We don't need to worry about this yet. We might not need to adjust this price at all, as long as we have other appraisals coming in higher and higher and higher, $10, $20, $30,000 each. If it adds up to what this low appraisal is, then we'll still be on track for what our expectations are. If after all the appraisals come in that we're still at a negative, then we would need to have a price adjustment to be able to close.
Okay. So you're being very transparent with them. You're actually sharing the appraisals as they come in and walking them through.
I share exactly what we plan to do. And almost every transaction that I do, I try to almost educate the seller, maybe even coach them through the process of, here's what I do. We're clearly not the right buyer for everyone. But we're a buyer for someone that has a unique situation, and for it to make sense, here's what needs to happen. And here's what I do. And here's the process. And here's what we're looking for. And this might come up. But if this comes up, we have a few remedies for that. So try to map it out for them. You can't map out everything, but I've done this enough where I know the core things that could happen that might kill a deal or make a seller panic, and try to give them some forewarning on that, or at least some confidence that we have a plan for it.
So I think there's the benefit of, a seller working with somebody like you, right? Is, they're landlords, they understand cash flow, they understand the business model, they understand the value of real estate. But like you said, they're getting older, they had health issues, they're looking to exit the game. And somebody like you understands that. Like, I'm looking to buy this property. That's why we talk about, like, when we're talking about our seller financing or creative financing, or you said a seller note, these sellers are more open to it than a traditional home buyer, right? Like, or a traditional seller. They don't understand all that. So you coming in and, like you said, educating them, kind of giving them their options could honestly be the best win-win for everyone, right? That's the goal.
Yep. And sometimes we tell them exactly what the expectation, we tell them what the realistic discount we need for this to make sense. Not because we want a discount, because it just doesn't make sense. The amount of work, the amount of time, the amount of cost, the risk upfront that we put in for it to might not actually pay off. There's a risk premium that we have to put on every decision. And we tell them, here's what our risk premium is. And sometimes they look at that and say, hey, I really appreciate that. Like, I had a friend that was thinking about selling a portfolio. We explained the reality. Here's a minimum we would need for it to even make sense. Not because I'm trying to steal your property from you, but here's what is going to be involved. He's like, he had a small portfolio. It was like 12 properties. Like, you know what? I think I'm going to go the route that you told me I probably should do, which is wait for tenants to move out, clean it up, put it on the market, and sell it to a homeowner there. And he understands it's going to take him probably 2 years to do that, but it was better than, taking a 20 to 25%, hit on his potential valuation.
So that 20% like discount that you mentioned, and you're transparent with the seller, because the risk, there's things that arise. I'm just curious to what are those type of things? I mean, inherited tenants that are bad and can be bad. What else like could be risky for you as the buyer?
Well, I mean, that right there is huge, right? Because you guys know, as agents, you guys sell out our properties. The moment you're selling a property with a tenant in it, the value drops. That's it.
Well,
Like, it drops. And so many landlords go, no, my tenant's amazing. I should be getting more for my property because of how amazing my tenant is. She's so sweet. And they might be a sweet tenant, but the reality is, if you think about it, the person paying the highest and most for any property is a owner occupant by far. Right? So owner occupant will pay the highest and most for a property. And if you have a tenant in the property, owner occupants can't buy it. And so that means 90% of the market doesn't exist for you. So you got to take out 90% and only sell to landlords. Okay. Some landlords are okay with bad deals. Most landlords are smart and they want good deals at cash flow. Mm-hmm. Meaning, so now it needs a cash flow. It only sells to landlords and it needs a cash flow. And then you have majority of those that are using DSCR type financing, which means it needs to be positive cash flow. Even if I see the value of your property in appraised for $400,000 yesterday, I can't give you $400,000 if you're only getting $2,000 a month in rent. I can't. Like, I can beg my lender to give you $400,000 and my lender's going to say, no, you're an idiot. You can't do that. Okay. Right? So it comes down to them selling it with a tenant by far is the things that reduces the value the most for landlords. Now, when you're selling multifamily, you're typically only selling to investors as well. But sometimes, when you get duplexes, you have people looking to house hack, buying one and the other. It does, take that off the table. And then you add in the fact that tenants don't like to be disturbed. Tenants are nervous. Every time a landlord sells their property, they're like, what's happening to me? Are they going to be taking me out? Are they going to be raising rent? They are incentivized. I'm not saying every tenant does this, but 99.9% of tenants will probably not make it easy to go show that property or not make it enticing. They like something in the back of their head is screaming at them, hey, don't let this guy buy this property. So your landlord's going to keep it. Your landlord's been great. If your landlord doesn't sell it, right? So now you have tenants saying weird things at the property, scaring away buyers.
Right.
Not every tenant, just most. They will do this. I understand. I was a tenant before. I understand like the uncertainty of, wait, I had a relationship with you. Now it's not going to be with you. What's going to go on? Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm not blaming the tenant for that. There's just an uncertainty around, being a tenant, especially when there's an ownership change there. So all of that factored in says that there's risk for a lot of things. If I take on that tenant, they're a great tenant, perfect. That being said, it's, it needs to meet a certain cash flow criteria, but there's a percentage of tenants that no matter what, they will not pay rent. They will not maybe they were paying rent and they see this new owner as an opportunity to stop paying rent, unfortunately. Right? Like, hey, maybe I'll get, fall between the cracks here. It'll take them a couple months to notice. Now I'm 3 months without rent. That's enough saved up for them to do something, and it's worth it for them, right? So
Yeah.
that happens, unfortunately. So I have to factor that into my risk premium, because it's not just the lost rent and the cost of carrying that. It is the legal fees and the process. And then once they're out, it's a renovation that I wasn't planning on spending that renovation. So that might be $4, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 for a small unit in some cases. So that's the risk premium that comes in that discount.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. So I'm just curious because, Anna and I, we work on deals locally, right? And it's usually one, I personally haven't done portfolio deals, right? So I'm just curious to like your team, I know you mentioned you have an agent and people down there to help you kind of analyze these deals, but I know you're not doing them, I guess, one by one, but how does that work? I know you're good with numbers, but how does that work in terms of analyzing a portfolio? Do you have other people helping?
Yeah. Oh, I rely on a lot of people. So I have 9 VAs myself now. Some of them are dedicated towards my investment, business as well. So they help me kind of vet leads. I still do a lot of the analysis myself. I still like that. The boots on the ground, whoever's sending me the deals, I want to make sure that it's sent to me clean with enough information for us to dig into it. And these are all markets that we have, vetted. We're already, in the market or want to be in that market. So we've done that. That takes some time as well. But yeah, it is putting it through. Now, the one rule I have, especially with dealing with, if you're an investor, and I think we share this in the Cashflow Breakfast Club. Maybe I do, maybe I don't, can't remember. But I tell investors, stop making your agents go see properties before you buy them. Stop seeing properties yourself before you buy them. If you want to buy in bulk or volume at any level, especially out of state, and you're having your agent go tour properties or someone tour properties for you, and they might be happy to do it for you. Like, great, you guys are both great agents. You guys might say, yeah, I'll go do that for my client. But the reality is, I know that the vast majority of leads that come my way, I will not even make an offer on. So why are they going to go see the property? The vast majority of properties I make an offer on, I will not get accepted. So why are they going to go see the property before I make an offer on? So it's not until I get a property accepted do I need to have someone go in there. I run a trust but verify business. I mean, you tell me the condition of your property, agent, wholesaler, seller. I will trust you. I will verify it at some point, and I will make my offer based on me trusting you, telling me exactly what it is. So you tell me that it's in perfect condition, perfect. You're getting an offer based on perfect condition. You tell me it needs a new roof or it needs this, perfect. I'll do that. But we can draft an offer really, really quick without seeing the property. And then once we're under contract, then my agent will go by, my wholesaler will go by, my inspector, my contractor will go by and verify. And if you lie to us, then we're backing out. If you told us the truth, then we're staying in the deal, or we need to renegotiate if it's not exactly what we thought. But we trust but verify. And the reason I say this, because I have teams all over the US. And starting out, I was the guy that wanted my agent to go see every single property, walk every single property, because I'm nervous. Like, they need to go see this. You walk me through, tell me what you're seeing. And they go walk 20 properties and haven't made an offer yet. Walk into the 20 properties and finally put in an offer, and it's a terrible offer. And they're like, what the heck am I doing? I'm wasting my time with this idiot guy living in Hawaii. He's not going to buy a property, right? So I'm burning out my agent. And so I had to teach and train my agents, even if they want to do that. I'm going to say, no, here's what the process is. I'm going to get like 100 leads come to me, and I might you might send me some leads. Some of them are clearly not going to be the right fit. I'm going to ask you about a few of them, maybe to try to get some information, on the back end about the numbers. But maybe 30 of them, I'm going to actually dig into and have my team analyze. And then out of those 30, it's probably going to turn to like 10 offers. Maybe 5 offers, somewhere in the 10 offers. And I hate to tell you this, I'm not giving full price offers for all these properties. I'm going to make offers based on what makes sense for me as investors. Sometimes it's full price. Sometimes it's over. Sometimes it's way under, right? I don't care at all what they're asking. I care, does it make sense as an investor to meet my return? And is it a offer that will allow me to get financing? Once again, I don't control the financing. I put a down payment, but the lender has to give a loan based on appraisal value and rental value. And so based on that, we give offers that are sometimes low. We explain why that's the highest offer we can give if it's a traditional offer without creative financing, right? Sometimes we give multiple offers that allow us to give multiple price points. And so I explained that to my agents, and I'm usually the first person they've ever dealt with that is walking through that process, that wants to make that many offers. But eventually they realize they appreciate me insisting they don't go out there with those properties on my behalf until we get under contract. So don't burn out your agents, don't burn out your good resources in the area, because no matter how well-intended you are, you're going to turn them into 20, 30, 40, 50 walked properties for nothing. And that will burn out anybody.
Why can't every buyer be like you? Where I'm like nodding my head. Yes. It does. It is good. You will get burned out if you're showing every property. So I agree 100%. And I know we are running close on time. I wanted to give you a little bit of space, talk about, masterminds, how it's been so instrumental in your growth, your personal growth, and, growing your professional network. We did, and I mentioned Dominican Republic. We went to Greece this past year. What's so special about masterminds and helping you with your business in person?
Yeah, business, life in general. All my best friends are from masterminds, right? I've been in some masterminds, one-off, some that have been for a very long period of time, but I don't know a better way to really connect with and bond with somebody. We might spend 10 years as friends off and on together, and in 3, 4, 5 days, we'll blow that relationship out of the water out of mastermind. You guys have both seen this. And it's just so weird how that happens. And the very first time I attended a mastermind, I had no idea what I was getting to. And I didn't want to open up. I was that guy, not sharing a lot and not feeling comfortable. Why are we talking about this? But then realizing by the end, my heart opened up, my connections opened, my mind opened up. And I had these literally to this day, lifelong connections of someone that was a stranger that I just met, but now we're brothers, right? And we have this connection. And I became addicted to that connection because in general in life, we meet a lot of people, there's a lot of surface level conversations that go, how are you, catching up, and that's okay. But I really love that deep level connections. I just don't have time for it with the thousands of people I interact with on a regular basis. So it's who can filter down from that to get to that next level? And, even though we might not connect for several months or, a year or so, we all have a connection that we kind of built, and I believe it just lasts. I'm years and years into mastermind. So it's important. Now, what you learn at the mastermind, right? Whether it's vivid vision, whether it's goal setting, whether it's real estate, whether it's, the topic is almost irrelevant. Usually, hopefully it's a topic that is impactful, that helps you with where you are, but really it is the forced connection at a level that's almost impossible to do without facilitation. So if you go to a networking event, you talk to people, you're going to have some sort of connection to some level, but there needs to be a facilitation that happens to get to that deeper level. It forces you beyond what we normally want to do. And so that I go to masterminds all the time where people facilitate me to unpeel the onion to make me open up, even though I know I should, I don't want to still. And then I facilitate those as well. And we try to do cool places like Greece and Dominican Republic, and just bought my third property in this neighborhood in Florida. So we'll probably do some stateside ones, that are easy to get to here as well. Hopefully, this year, but definitely love doing masterminds. And, you guys are two of my favorite people because we've been on a few together as well.
Well, we love you too. I do think it takes a special person. Usually for mastermind, someone's paying to be there. So it's not just casual acquaintance. That person is going with the intent. So I think that also makes a difference too, that the audience that's attending is going with a reason to learn and to connect with people. They're not just there.
For sure. And I know we briefly talked about it earlier. You have some great goals with your business, right? Buying all these properties, buying portfolios. But I wanted to highlight your health goal, because I think, what you've done since I've known you, you were able to lose a lot of weight. You started 2026 with I think this social media challenge that you're doing. You mind talking about that and why you decided to do that?
Yeah. You're Buck, man.
Yeah, I don't have a goal to be buff, but like,
It's working out.
obviously I had this, I played sports, when I was a kid growing up. I was always healthy. And then at some point, when I became obsessed with business, real estate, money, everything else took a backseat, and it wasn't second, third, fourth. It just didn't exist. Um, and so my health plummeted at that point. Way overweight, so many pains, back pains, knee pains, everything. I just kind of chalked it up to I'm getting old. Everyone in my family gets overweight. Everyone in my family, has these pains, and I'm, part of a couple, communities and memberships as well. And like other people that are just as busy as me, maybe even busier, are healthy. I'm like, man, I'm telling myself a lie. And, cause I was like, I'm okay sacrificing my health, or not caring about my health, as long as I'm providing for my family, setting up their future, building my, whatever the lie I was telling myself. It was okay for me to not care about my health for most of my adult life. And it's weird. I've always had this weird thing about I always thought I was going to die young. I always thought I was going to die young. I had no reason why, but literally I was surprised when I made 30. I'm like, man, okay, I'm 30. And then got to a point, I guess I'm gone by 40. I know it's morbid. Cut this out if you want to, but I've always had this thing. Maybe that's why I needed so much financial freedom at an early age. I know that. But anyways, and then got to a point where I'm 40 something now. And it's like, I'm still here, and okay, I have enough means. Like technology nowadays, you say what you want about AI. One thing I know it's going to do is it's going to extend life. I'm like, I have enough means that if I wanted to live longer, I could buy it. But do I want to live longer in this body, in this pain, literally feeling like I'm dying for years? I can't stand up. Cashflow Breakfast Club. We move around so much because I can't stand in one place for more than 5 minutes without pain. And that gives me the ability to kind of shift and go through that. Right. And so, I finally, kind of went after talking about it for years. I should focus about this. I should focus accountability groups. What do you want to focus on this year? Health's one of them. Didn't do anything with it. Finally, a really good friend who was going to go through something similar was about a year ahead of me on this health journey. And I just hired a coach. It was really great. And you know what? I'm thinking about turning it into this accountability mastermind group. So I'm in, we hired his coach. He tells us exactly what to do every day, exactly what to eat or what not to eat. And we turned it into a mastermind. We got 15, I think it's 10 last year. We got 15 this year, of just people that are all right, locked in. Let's just have someone tell us what to do. And turn it into a game, points system. Someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. All entrepreneurs in the room, everyone wants to win now. So that helps. And there's daily check-ins and things like that. So that's the coaching program that I'm a part of. And the problem with last year, it was a 10-month program. The first 3-4 months, I did nothing. I was like, okay, I'm always a procrastinator. I'm like, I'll catch up with everyone later. So it turns out you can't catch up with health, right? So my first 3 months didn't track anything eating wise. I probably did 4 workouts in 3 months. So clearly I was terrible. And then I crammed at the end, and I actually did pretty good at the end, but I just crammed at the end. That's how I do everything. You understand how I was as a student. And I said, I can't do that this year. Can I just have a healthy life all the way through? So there's a program that's been going around for a while called 75 Hard. And it's 2 workouts a day, 45 minutes each. One has to be outside no matter what the weather is. They have to be 3 hours apart. You have to drink a gallon of water every single day, which is one of the hardest things for me. I've never drunk a gallon of water in my life. I've been doing it for 29 days straight now. And so you have to read 10 pages because it's not just a fitness, it's a mental toughness. You got to do a few other things as well. And it's something I've known about. I was always thought all right, that would be cool to do that at some point. But at the beginning of this year, one of my other friends was completely unrelated to this coaching program I'm part of. Just, hey, I'm doing 75 Hard. You mentioned in the past you want to do it. Stop being called me something. I said, and commit to it. I'm like, all right, I'm in. And so I committed to that the next day. And are there some days I regret that I committed to it? Yes. But the reality is I'm, way ahead of schedule where I should be in this, procrastination model that I normally run on this coaching program. So I feel healthier. back pain's gone, neck pain's gone, shoulder pain's gone. All the pains that I had that I used to take like pain medication for, all gone. And I'm not saying that's everything. There's probably other things I need to work on, but can I get to a point where my body's healthy? I'm strong enough to be a active dad, grandfather, hopefully at some point. I need to live to 123 because that's what AI is going to allow me to do. I just got to be at a body where I want to be around that long. So that's my focus, and hopefully it's going to be one of my primary focuses from here on out.
Yeah, love it. And what did you lose, like 30, 40 pounds in that last year?
Yeah, so it's weird. So off and on, like the last couple of years, I started like, all right, playing around with fasting and eating less, but I didn't really know what I was doing. Had no idea between a protein and a carb and fat. Like I could not tell you what they were when I was eating it. Right. And so through intermittent fasting and doing some things and just not eating fast food a lot, I dropped my weight down. I think at my peak, I was like maybe 260. I got down to like 240, 230 maybe, or something along those lines, but zero muscle whatsoever, just no strength whatsoever. And so the last year I didn't drop a ton of weight. I think I got down to like 220-ish or so, but obviously bulked up, which is more strength and more muscle. And then this year, the goal is to actually raise our weight for a period of time to help build more muscle. And then towards the end, I think there's some sort of something he does at the end where we change it out and cut some of that back. But yeah, I'm less tracking the weight, want less body fat. I just don't want to die, so I just live longer, and put in the work that shows that I'm willing to, take care of this body that I have ignored for a while.
Yeah. Something about being with a coach and being with the team kind of pushes you forward. And, I know we're getting close on time, but we wanted to give you your flowers online. You've been there for the beginning of both of our journeys in real estate, and we really loved, everything that you provide. You're such a go-giver for, not only us, but the huge community that you built with the Cashflow Breakfast Club, all the masterminds that you host. So we just want to obviously thank you, for coming on and talking about your business, but also talking about mindset and health and everything. Obviously, we can go for a whole another hour talking about all the benefits, but wanted to give you your flowers right there.
For sure. This is all your fault. Like I can wholeheartedly speak for both of us that if it wasn't for you, Nico and I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't be investing. This podcast wouldn't exist. Like I've said it too many times. Thank you. This is all because you decided to pay it forward to other people. So thank you.
Thank you. No, I consider you guys both family. Love both of you. Super, super proud of both of you guys on your individual journeys. Not just your journeys, but you guys are both impacting so many people along the way. So couldn't be more proud. Thrilled to call you friends.
Thanks, Omni. So where can people reach out to you, Omni, if they have questions or if they want to learn about the Cashflow Breakfast Club?
Yeah, the website, cashflowbreakfastclub.com. I think I'm still on social media. It's not really
somebody is.
Marcus is posting, but if you message them, it'll get to me and we can reach out. I'm the investor guy on most of the channels as well.
And you're also still hosting Loudoun County Cashflow Breakfast Club?
Second Tuesday of every month is in Ashburn, Loudoun County. I'm out there hosting what you guys are doing as well. So I'll be out there next week.
Awesome.
Sweet. All right. Get our room ready so we can come down to Florida.
Love it.
That too. That's going to do it for another episode of the Agent to Investor podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, follow Omni, and you can follow me at N Garcia Official on all social platforms. And you can reach out to Anna at
Anna _realtor, Anna everywhere.
All right, guys. Tune into the next one.